Andrew, on today's show is going to be filled with ups and downs. But I think, by and large, this show is going to help you. How much older is your wife than you, Andrew?
She's 4 years older than I am.
4 years, wow.
Yeah.
So you're going for the more mature ladies.
This is true.
Well, on today's show, we're talking to an author. His name is Haydn Shaw. He's the best-selling author. He's a consultant of choice for the Marriott, Microsoft, the Atlantic Falcons, Caterpillar, and other big-time companies. He wrote this book called Sticking Points, how to get 5 generations working together in the 12 places that they come apart, and how to bridge the gap in age between Andrew and his wife. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download.
3, 2, 1, boom! You are now entering the dojo of Mojo and the Thrive Time Show.
Thrive Time Show on the microphone. What is this? Top of the iTunes charts in the category of business. Drilling down on business topics like we are a dentist. Providing you with mentorship like you are an apprentice. And we go so fast that you might get motion sickness. Grab a pen and pad to the lab. Let's get in this. It's time to bear some fruit like some Florida oranges. 3, 2, 1. Here come the business ninjas.
Sonic boom.
Yes, 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 and yes, Thrive Nation. It is a very special occasion because on today's show, we're interviewing a man about this incredible new piece of work here called Sticking Points. How to get 5 generations working together in the 12 places they come apart. Haydn Shaw, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
I'm thriving.
You're thriving? You're feeling the flow. Feeling the flow. You're feeling the flow. You sound good. You sound like you're smelling good. Would you agree?
You know what? I am smelling good.
So tell us, what is this Sticking Points project? Tell us, what is this?
Well, for 25 years, I've been helping organizations sort out what to do with these multiple generations, and they just keep coming. And as I said in the book, it used to be that people died at a decent age, but now, with healthcare and eating right and a little Botox, you have no idea how old people are. And so people just keep living and living, and now as a result, we live 30 years longer, average person does, than we did 100 years ago. And so as a result, we've got 5 generations now. We just keep stacking them up in the workplace.
So if I'm listening right now, and I'm what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you get into some meat on today's show so people can decide whether your book is a right fit for them. But before I do that, I want to kind of go back into your background just to kind of build up your credibility there for the listeners out there. What was your background, or what is your background previous to writing this book?
Well, I worked with Stephen Covey, and taught managers and people in organizations all over the world. So, taught 150,000 people.
Wow,
30,000 managers.
That's impressive. Now, for folks out there, we have some listeners of all different generations that listen to this show. I know who Stephen Covey is. He's a legend in the best-selling book space. But could you maybe share with the listeners a little bit about Stephen Covey and maybe the hit book that most entrepreneurs my age, the book that he wrote that most entrepreneurs my age would know about?
You bet. And now the interesting thing is how many people have had it as a textbook somewhere in either high school or college. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then the high school version of it was 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And so I'm surprised when I teach groups of people right out of college. I'm surprised that probably a third of them are familiar with it. And
I agree.
So that's the most famous one. That's the one I probably taught the most. But there's a bunch more. 4 Disciplines of Execution is just exceptional.
Yep.
And helping organizations figure out how to make the main thing the main thing.
Now, let's say this. I believe that you're credible, not that you need my validation, but I just want listeners to know we're not I didn't just meet a guy out front of my building and say, let's get this guy on the show. Okay, so now you have experience. You've consulted with a lot of top companies. Final question, just so the folks can really feel like they're ready to take some notes here. What are some of the big companies that you have consulted with? Maybe some of the name drops, just so folks can go, I know that company.
Oh, a bunch of them. So in sports, the Atlanta Falcons, Caterpillar, in equipment, Hyatt, the Marriott, Microsoft, and then a bunch of things in construction. In the book, I talk about Cactus Feeders, the third largest privately owned cattle feedlot in the country, and the impact that it had with them. And so that's kind of the concluding chapter, is how this feedlot was able to recruit people, younger generations, and then give them a cause to get excited about their feeding children who are at risk, sending home food for the weekend in their school meals.
Now, your book, Sticking Points, How to Get 5 Generations Working Together in the 12 Places They Come Apart, it seems to be indicative by the title that there are 12 places where the things come apart. Maybe you could just focus on 3 on today's show where you see in the workplace where these 5 generations are maybe 3 places where you often see things falling apart in the workplace.
You bet. They come apart around work ethic. That's one of the biggest ones. I'm talking with a group of family-owned businesses. They tend to pass them down one generation to the next. And work ethic is one of the biggest ones. And then communication, the style and the tools that people want to use to communicate. And then lastly, how we make decisions and who gets to make decisions. And, how long do you have to wait your turn? How long do you have to sit at the card table at Thanksgiving before you get invited up to the big table where you actually get asked your opinion and can say something? Now,
you sound like you sound like you're looking 25. Okay, so you have the wisdom like you've been on the planet for a while. So I don't even want to guess at how old you are, but I want to bring this up. You talked about work ethic. Do you see a lot of the young people, the 18-year-olds, the gluten-free, the 19-year-olds, the Starbucks generation, more of the local? I guess it's the local coffee shop generation. Do you see them as a general rule having a more intense work ethic than the grandparents, or less intense, or what do you see about the work ethic of today's young people?
Well, I'm actually out visiting my grandkids. So I'm sitting here in my son's house, and he said to me about a year ago, "Are you guys still talking about millennials? I got a mortgage and 2 kids." And so what it illustrates is that generalizations, especially around millennials, are tricky now because there's actually 3 life stages of millennials. And that's one of the big changes in the sticking points in this second edition versus the first edition, is now millennials have really 3 different life stages, and you got to motivate and deal with the life stage aspect differently. And he picked it up well. The oldest millennials turn 40 next year, which means they're protected by age discrimination laws. And so when a person gets a mortgage, they tend to move into a phase of life where they may not prefer a more intense work ethic, but they've got a more intense set of bills, and so they don't have quite as much freedom and flexibility as they did before. And so it's really a life stage thing. Definitely traditionalists and boomers earn their identity, especially males, by how hard they worked. And Gen Z, while they work hard, also, one of the researchers, most prominent researchers of Gen Z, they called it life-work balance. One extra they interviewed said, extras are people in their late 40s and then 50s. One of the extras said, the fact that you even call it life-work balance means you still don't get it. And so they were really big into work-life balance, whereas the millennials really wanted a lot more flexibility. 25% of millennials said in a survey 6 years ago that they would give up a raise in order to get more vacation time. And but what's interesting about Gen Z, this newest generation, just barely entering the workplace, is that they believe you got to work hard, especially for the first 10 years, to establish their career. That's what happens when Xers go through a major recession and tell their kids, you're not doing any of those degrees, where you get to explore yourself and find your passion. You're going to go get a job, and you can do do art and music and whatever else in your free time.
Hayden,
they're back nose to the grindstone, the Gen Zers.
Hayden, in your book, do you cover the top 5 effective tips to manage Antifa for any of the employers out there that have a member of Antifa working in their warehouse? Do you give any tips on that?
I got nothing
on
okay. that. I got nothing on that.
Okay.
Although to be serious though, I do talk about how much more liberal the Gen Zs are than even the millennials were, and how much more liberal the millennials are than the Xers, who actually had to swing back to being more conservative. So the Xers Generation X was more Republican than the boomers or the millennials, and now, and so when it comes to groups that tend to be more, that tend to be more on the progressive or even the fringe of the progressive side, you're going to find more Gen Zers who see the good parts of, as Bernie Sanders mentioned, the good parts of socialism. And they didn't grow up in the world I did, where socialism meant communism and people slapping the table with a shoe.
So let's say this. If I'm listening today and I'm wanting to apply a concept in your book, I want to make my business better. I want to make sure that my business does a better job of communicating the vision and getting my whole team to work together to achieve the vision, to work together to be more productive, to be more profitable, to be more successful. Maybe what is one action step we could learn from your book?
Number one thing you can do is be more curious. If you're more curious, then you'll be able to understand and talk the language of another generation. And that really is the key thing, because the generations themselves will tell you what will motivate them if you'll get curious and listen. But if you're not curious and you say, well, I don't know what will motivate these folks, they won't give you the answers, because they'll think if you're my age that you deserve an OK Boomer T-shirt as opposed to a conversation. And if you're just brand new coming into the workplace, you're on your first or second job.
Yeah.
Get curious as to why the people sometimes have policies or rules that don't make sense to you. Get curious why Outlook is what most organizations use, even though it's not what many people use when they're in college or when they were doing their projects.
If I'm listening right now and I'm going, listen, I'm thinking about buying a regrettable burrito. And James, by the way, you're on a workout plan right now. James is an attorney. Sir, with your new workout program, are you allowed to eat regrettable burritos?
Nothing with flour.
How's that diet coming, though? Seriously.
Oh, I resisted. I hated those guys. I yelled at them, sent nasty text messages for a while, and then after a couple weeks, I settled down. So now I'm humming.
So here's the deal. James is thinking about Haydn. He's thinking about right now because he's been on this great diet. Things are going well. He's making progress. He's thinking, do I want to buy a regrettable burrito, or do I want to buy this new book, Sticking Points, your new book, Sticking Points, How to Get 5 Generations Working Together in the 12 Places That Come Apart. Now, just to tee this up, James has been very diligent on this diet. And you know what I'm saying there, Hayden? When you get into a new diet, it's like you want to have a regrettable burrito. You want to go to that gas station and buy a regrettable burrito, and you want to spend $20 on it because you want to wash it down with a 2-liter of something. You want an ice cream bar. The whole thing could come apart here. So try to convince James that he doesn't want to buy the regrettable burrito and why he should buy your book, because he's down to his last $20 here.
I understand completely, and James, I don't know that I can win at this one.
Do I eat or read? Do I eat or read? Come on.
You eat or read. Well, let's go back to the original part of the conversation when you said I sound like I smell good.
Yeah.
And James, what would make you smell better in about an hour and a half? The burrito or the book? That's really
Whoa!
Wow!
What does the book smell like?
Yeah, the book smells brand new and fresh. It is minty fresh. The book is. They just came out, and so they are minty fresh.
Andrew,
three reasons.
Three reasons
I give you why the book is helpful. First one is, if you don't understand why the generations think the way they do, then you're going to try to manage them, and you can't manage people. You can only lead them. Number two, it's got over 100 practical do this kind of ideas of specifically what you do to handle particular situations. And then lastly, it's a great conversation starter, not just at work, but in your personal life. I'd say half the people who talk to me go, yeah, it was really helpful at work, but what it helped the most with was with my kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews.
All right, I'm sold. I'm sold.
I think for any of the ladies out there that are, the book is called Sticking Points, How to Get 5 Generations Working Together in the 12 Places That They Come Apart. Now, I'm just throwing out an idea here, Andrew, and you tell me if this is weird.
Yeah.
You married an older woman.
I did, in fact, marry a woman that was older than I am.
How much older is she than you?
I believe she's 4 years older than I am.
Okay, major generational gap there.
Major.
Now, and again, at a certain point, and I'm not sure, maybe you could comment on this, Haydn. At a certain point, age doesn't matter. So like some of my good friends now, I'm 40, I'm 39 years old. Some of my good friends are, 60, 65. And it's like we have a great conversation. Some of my friends are 70. There's a certain age where it doesn't matter, the age difference. So if there's any ladies out there that are in their 80s, looking to date a guy in their 30s? Does this book bridge that gap, Haydn? Does it do that?
This book will help bridge that gap.
Yes.
I don't know that it's going to make you more attractive. I don't know it's going to up your, up your success rate, but it will definitely mean you can speak the language of the people of a different generation, understand why they think the way they do, especially on some things that are puzzling to you about that generation.
And you'll smell minty fresh.
Andrew, listen to this. Listen, I'm being serious. You need to buy this book right now, Sticking Points.
Yeah.
Okay? I do want you to buy it right now on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Log into my account. I want you to buy the book. I want to have it. And I will have this book in the bookshelf here in the man cave. It will happen. It'll be a book we'll digest. We'll break it down. But I also want you to have it available so you can communicate with your wife. The generation gap is massive, and I often worry there. And then one more time, sir, if we want to buy the book, is there a place you'd prefer for us, Haydn, to buy the book? Is there a certain website? Do you want us to go on Amazon? Where's the best place to buy the book?
You bet. Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, they like it when you mention all three of those. It's a pre-order. It's not officially out until October 6th. So sorry to convince you to hold off on a burrito, and now you got to go book hungry. But it comes out, the second edition of it comes out October 6th. It's been completely re-researched, everything in it. It's the most current book on generations that's out there, and it's the only one that covers all five.
Brother, I appreciate you so much for being on today's show. You, in fact, are a great American, and thank you for making your book smell terrific.
We do what we can with mint.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Boom.